sorry?
And then Commissioner Thomas went to the restroom. Commissioner Thomas is going to go.
See if I can usually never get this.
Probably done it late. That says fresh.
No, no. Oh, really?
Yes. I may have had 6 or 7. I had to go find the garbage again. That's why she left.
Oh, wow.
So that's why Claudia came in.
Here we go. Can somebody?
I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order on February 11th, 2025, and ask the city clerk to please call roll.
Commissioner Henderson,
Present.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Thomas,
Present.
Commissioner Wilson,
Present.
Mayor Bray.
Present. So I'll ask Commissioner Thomas to do the invocation tonight, and then we'll remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to be here today. Give us the right mind to make the right decisions. Keep us in your grace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Manager, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mayor, this evening we respectfully ask for an addition, adding item 3B to authorize the purchase of 1801 Guthrie Avenue, 737 Goebel Avenue, and 720 Joe Bryan Drive.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll kick off with a presentation from Aaron Harned, who's the local director for the Kentucky Small Business Development Center. And as Aaron makes his way up here, he'll tell you a little bit about what he does. But I met Aaron a couple of years ago. The city and county and chamber have been collaborating with him to support the work that he's doing with small businesses in this area, and I'm here to tell you, Aaron and SBDC does a lot of great work, so it's great to have you. It was actually my request that you come and tell us about all the great work that you're doing, so we could socialize all the work.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for letting me come tonight and speak, Mayor Bray. Just talk a little bit about the Small Business Development Center and the work that we do. Like Mayor Bray said, my name is Aaron Harned. I'm the Center Director for the Kentucky Small Business Development Center here in Paducah. We are part of a larger network of small business development centers that operate throughout the state of Kentucky and also throughout the United States. So there are small business development centers present in all 50 states and all U.S. territories, and our role is to provide no-cost, confidential business consulting services on behalf of the Small Business Administration. Now, here in Kentucky, we also provide those services on behalf of the University of Kentucky as well. They are the host for our organization and provide the route by which the SBA funding comes through the University of Kentucky and then comes to our local centers where we are able to deliver those services. Now, like I mentioned, we do provide no-cost, confidential business consulting services, and all we ever ask for from our clients is that they do two super easy things. The first thing is the SBA requires that I send surveys. They don't even have to answer them. They just have to give me an email address that we can send them to. So they require that we send surveys. And then the second thing, and the most important thing about our program, is whenever we help businesses achieve economic milestones, we ask for them to sign an attribution form that says that we assisted with providing them the services they needed to reach those economic milestones. We are the only federally funded small business assistance group that receives attribution. The other small business assistance groups like the Veterans Business Outreach Centers, the Women's Business Outreach Centers, and SCORE chapters that provide technical assistance to small businesses do not receive attribution like we do. So we are the only ones who actually have proof that the work that we're doing is actually helping clients. In a lot of situations, those folks are able to claim things that they might not have been directly involved in. We have to be directly involved in those services to be able to get that attribution so we can meet our SBA goals. Now, like I said, the University of Kentucky houses the money for our organization, and we work on a one-to-one match. So for every one SBA dollar that's made available, we have to have a Kentucky dollar to match it. The University of Kentucky provides a pot of money, but it's not enough to sustain our entire program. We work with additional economic partners throughout the state of Kentucky who provide the additional funding that we need to meet the entire match that the SBA provides. Now, this is a list of all of the partners throughout the state of Kentucky, and as we move to the next slide, you'll see these 14 individual partners are the people that we've identified and worked with here in Western Kentucky to fund the Paducah Center. So in some of the other areas of the state, they might just have one stakeholder who contributes a large portion of the funding that's needed to operate the center. Here in Western Kentucky, we've tried to take a different approach and employ a bunch of stakeholders to try to deliver a small amount of funding. That way, in a situation where we lose one of those stakeholders, it's much easier for us to find somebody to fill that vacancy. Actually, we have lost one of these stakeholders just from the first year of the agreement to the second year of the agreement. One of these folks dropped out, and we've already been able to find somebody to fill in that spot because we're asking for such a small amount of money. The Paducah Area Chamber of Commerce acts as the fiscal agent. They collect the money from these entities and then send it to the University of Kentucky, and then it's matched with SBA dollars to help fund the center. This is the part that I'm really here to talk about, though, is the results that we've seen in the Small Business Development Center in Paducah. So you'll see that these results are measured from October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024. We have to operate on 3 different calendars at the Small Business Development Center. The metrics that the SBA gives us have to operate on a federal fiscal year. Our finances have to operate on the calendar year, and we are required by the University of Kentucky for our programmatic year has to follow the regular fiscal year. So we work on all different types of calendars, but the way they actually measure my metrics and what we do with clients is measured on a federal fiscal year. So this is our last federal fiscal reporting year. You can see we had 632 total hours spent directly with clients. We had 24 either purchased or started new businesses. We closed a total of $7.43 million in either loans or equity injections directly from owners into small businesses. And then the total amount of jobs either created, retained, or supported by the Small Business Development Center in Paducah is 584. Now, that does not just cover jobs in Paducah and McCracken County. I serve the 13 most western counties of Kentucky, and then every now and then I work with a business outside of those counties. So if there's a business in a different area of the state where one of the other business coaches might not have an area of expertise, or they might be dealing with a situation they're unfamiliar with, I can co-coach with those people. None of that actually shows up on my scorecard other than just the hours. Every now and then I'll spend a few hours with a client from outside of Western Kentucky. Now, those numbers are good, but what I like to think about more is the efficiency metrics that we're showing in the Paducah Center for the Small Business. The work that we are doing is coming in at the lowest cost compared to any other center in the state. So the total amount of cash match that's needed to operate the Paducah Center is $50,000. That's the total amount that we have of stakeholders contributing $50,000 in cash, and then it's matched with $50,000 of SBA funding. The City of Paducah specifically is contributing $5,000 towards that. If we take the entire $50,000 that our stakeholders are contributing and measure that against the metrics that the SBA tracks me on, for every hour of client service that I deliver, it comes in at a rate of $79.11. Every client is effectively if they were paying me, each one of them cost about $195 for me to work with each individual client. Our business starts come in right around $2,000. Each job supported is around $85, and then every cash match dollar is leveraged to create $148 of capital infusion, either through equity investment or through loans that we help those businesses close. If we look at the current reporting period on what we've done since October 1st up through January 30th, you can kind of get an idea of where we're at so far. The numbers there are what we've achieved so far, and then out to the side, it highlights what the SBA has set aside for me as goals. So we've already completed 60% of what they would like to see me do for the number of clients served. I expect will far outweigh what they've given me for a goal. We already had 7 business starts or acquisitions so far. We've done about $1.7 million in loans so far, with significant loans still on the table that should close during this reporting period. I've got about 199 client hours, and so far jobs supported for my businesses looks about 221. The 4 kind of main areas of service that we deliver to clients, number one, our kind of flagship thing is one-on-one business coaching. So that looks like working with either pre-venture clients or existing clients to provide them any level of business coaching that they might require. Right now my split is about 60% new pre-venture kind of clients who are looking to start a business, and about 40% of my work is with existing business clients. A big part of what we do, since we are SBA funded, they're very concerned about us trying to help those businesses access capital. So whether that looks like traditional funding, collateral guaranteed funding, if we're helping to negotiate seller financing agreements, if we're helping with Rob's transactions, anything a small business might be trying to do to leverage capital for their business, we try to be involved in those things and provide as much assistance as possible. We also provide business training through on-demand and live trainings that are delivered from our state office. So we have a statewide training coordinator who does recorded trainings, he does live Zoom trainings, and then he also does in-person trainings. So a lot of those are targeted towards startups, so we can kind of triage and figure out who's ready to start a business and who's not. But then we also have additional trainings that are on all kinds of different topics that are specific to what small businesses are looking for. And then the last thing that we try to do is be a connector. So whether if somebody comes to me and asks for some type of service that I'm not capable of providing, or we're limited in providing, we try to connect those small businesses with the resources they need in our communities or on a state level so that they can get the assistance that they're looking for. My contact information is right there. If you all know any small businesses who are looking for assistance or entrepreneurs looking to start small businesses, more than happy to meet with those folks and see what I can do to help them. But thanks so much for the opportunity to come, and I'd be glad to field any questions.
Where's your office located?
WKCTC provides an office inside the Emerging Technology Center through an in-kind donation. So the rent that we would pay, we're able to take as a donation, and then we get SBA match dollars for that as well.
What's the definition of small when you say small business? I mean, is that...
It varies based on the industry that the businesses are in. So the SBA puts out a size standard, and then based on the North American Industry Classification Code for each business, there's a size standard based on the amount of revenue or the amount of employees that business can have to be categorized as small. In most situations, we're looking at $5 million of annual revenue or less than 500 employees. So almost all businesses I can...
Less than 5 million, not more than.
Less than 5 million in
And
annual
less than
revenue
500.
or less than 500 employees. So I can almost qualify
So really,
anybody.
just about anybody could,
Yeah. It's very rare for me to interact with somebody who I can't categorize as small. And even if I can't categorize them as small, it doesn't mean we can't work with them. It just means that they're not eligible for SBA funding.
So somebody comes to you for the first time and they got this dream,
Yeah.
that they want to start a business, and, they've not written a business plan. They've really not, kind of crystallized their ideas around that. I mean, what do you do?
So we try to spend a lot of time on feasibility, especially with pre-venture clients, and whether that looks like starting with a feasibility study, or if they've already done some feasibility work themselves, we can transition directly into the business planning process. Whenever we help people write business plans, we work on the narrative side, but then also on the financial projection side, depending on whether or not they're planning to bootstrap the business and self-fund, if they're looking to seek capital, the type and nature of that business loan and the projections is going to vary greatly, but it's kind of a case-by-case basis. But it all starts with coming back to feasibility and making sure that they've got an idea that's not only financially feasible, that we can get funded, but then is also executionally feasible as something they're actually capable of operating.
So do you, I mean, you help them with bank loans, but I mean, what, like an angel investor or somebody on the side that, I mean, do you have individuals or groups that you would go to that say, here's a really good idea, but they're going to need $500,000 to get started? I mean, that sort of thing.
So we've got a couple of different options. Here locally, I've been able to network with several different accounting firms who have basically said, hey, we've got some high net worth individuals who might be interested in investing. If you come across something that has this type of return on investment, if you could let us know about it, we'd be interested in having a conversation with those folks. So like I said, our services are no cost and confidential, so I've got to get a waiver of confidentiality and get an okay from a client before we ever have those conversations. But those have been conversations that come up. Depending on the nature of the business, there's also some statewide organizations that do more actual angel investing, like the Bluegrass Angels, that we're also closely affiliated with. And anytime I've got a client who would be a good referral for the Bluegrass Angels, we have a contact there that we make that referral for.
I'll just add that Aaron does a great job. And the
Pretty
only
clear.
ones contributor that we lost had said it was just a 1 year, and we had no problem finding somebody else to pick up that spot. So great job, and we really appreciate everything that you do for the community.
Thank you so much.
It's a resource that we absolutely have to have.
Right. And thank you to the chamber for being sort of the
Yeah,
collaborator,
happy to
the middle of the, help getting us all herding cats. So I want to go back and ask a question about this attribution, where you ask somebody, so how do you determine when you ask them to sign that attribution?
So the SBA gives us very strict definitions on when they've met the metrics that they give for us. So the four main metrics that they track us on are coaching hours, which they have a very strict definition about what that means, what we have to be discussing. I've got to have a start time and an end time associated with my reporting for it, and our CRM tool that we use. For business starts, there's a very strict definition. There's actually 4 points that they have to complete, all 4 of those points to be considered in business. For capital infusion, we have to have proof of closing documents if they're borrowing, if they aren't borrowing, if they're equity injection. I've got to see a bank statement that shows that cash contribution was made into the business account. And then for jobs created, whenever we are measured on that, we have to see payroll records associated with the new jobs and a payroll report showing the previous amount of jobs and then the created amount of jobs that we're trying to claim.
I think that's about all of my questions. I made note. Anybody else have any questions? The final thing I guess I would say is that sometimes, here in the city, maybe more through the planning department, sometimes we used to have a small business development person that actually worked for the city. We don't any longer. So there's kind of a category of small businesses that kind of fall through the cracks a little bit, but I think that we can guide aspirational people who want to start a business, toward Aaron. And I would assume the chamber does that from time to time.
And I've got, down in the finance department, I've got some flyers out that have got contact information for the Small Business Development Center. So if people are coming to get their business license here at City Hall, they've got the opportunity to get my contact information. And then as well, whenever there's Kickstart meetings, I get those emails as well. So if it's somebody who's looking to start a new business, I try to attend those meetings if I don't already have a relationship with that person.
Okay. Well, make sure that you got some flyers in our planning department.
Okay.
Because we see some folks through there as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks very much, Aaron, for being here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I've got to go coach a little league basketball practice.
Get
so I asked
the
for an
heck out.
excuse to get out of here. But
I'm
thank
headed
you.
to somewhere too, so.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, thank you.
I just got you talking to the man. Just working on my plan.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless one of our board members so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. The city clerk will read the items recommended for approval unless someone has something they want to pull off. Go ahead, city clerk.
Approve minutes for the January 27, 2025 joint special called meeting of the Board of Commissioners in the McCracken Fiscal Court and the January 28, 2025 Board of Commissioners meeting. Receive and file documents. Reappointment of Jimmy Rex J. Smith II and Gregory Cannon to the Brooks Stadium Commission. Said terms shall expire December 5, 2028. Reappointment of Paul King, Jimmy Evans, and Kerry Fulcher to the Building Electrical Fire Codes Appeals Board. Said term shall expire January 22, 2028. Personnel actions. A municipal order approving the acceptance of an award from the McCracken County Farm Bureau Federation of Grain Bin Rescue Equipment for the Fire Department, and a municipal order declaring the real property located at 1131 Tennessee Street, Paducah, Kentucky, to be surplus property, transferring the property without compensation to Paducah Alliance of Neighbors for economic development purposes, and authorizing the mayor to execute the deed and all documents related to same.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. The next item is a resolution, and I'll ask the city clerk to read it, and then I'll explain it.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a resolution entitled, Resolution of the City of Paducah, Kentucky opposing House Bill 253 and any other bills brought forth during the 2025 Kentucky General Assembly session by any member of the Kentucky Legislature in full or in part, that provides for the mandated centralized collection of local occupational fees, taxes by the Commonwealth of Kentucky or other third parties.
So moved.
Second.
So, one of the things that we have right now is that the state of Kentucky collects, currently, they collect cell phone fees. And so they apportion back those cell phone fees to municipalities, at a certain rate. We really don't get to see, exactly what comes back to us. I'd invite the city manager to weigh in if I'm off base. And that's very concerning, because we all know that cell phones everybody has one. Many people have two. Everybody, once they get to be 13 years old, has one. So there's millions of them, and I think that a lot of that money stays up at the state. So generally, Kentucky League of Cities, which I am a member of the board of directors, and Paducah has been a member of KLC for a long time. The KLC and the cities in the state of Kentucky oppose centralized collection of any kind of taxes or fees. And there is a bill that's been introduced to centralize the collection of certain taxes. In particular, I believe it's
Occupational.
yeah, it's is it Airbnb?
Well, that is one, separate, but there is a movement aside of this one that Airbnb and others would remit only to and then it would be similar to the 911 reapportionment back.
But this one's occupational tax.
Yes. And so
They also collect insurance tax too, correct?
insurance premium tax
Yeah.
is remitted
And
back to us.
There's no, it is, but we have no visibility.
Right, but it's a different situation.
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
I'm just using that as an example of no transparency on what goes to the state. We don't know how much of it's going to the state and how much of it's coming back, right?
True, we don't in relationship to insurance premium, because we'll get a payment from, say, a State Farm, and we don't know who State
Yeah.
Farm or how much, is that a true accounting? We have to rely on State Farm to say, for that information.
So at any rate, I think it's a good idea for us to go on record to say that we are in opposition to centralized collection of taxes. I think that's something that we need to stay in control of have visibility, transparency to, what people are paying and what people aren't. So,
I'll just say I'm a firm believer of home rule, and this goes totally against home rule and
Right.
allowing the city to make those decisions and run that.
goes right to the heart of the issue, really.
Yeah, and, to the mayor's point in relationship to 911, yes, that is centralized. And so if you look at the trend line over the last several years, the money's coming back to the PSAPs agencies, which we are one, to manage, to help manage and help offset costs from 911. The state's revenues have trending up. Ours have almost been flat to a little bit up. I mean, there is a major gap, because of the formula that they use and they collect it, and we don't receive the benefit of that. Would also say that in relationship to centralized location or centralized collection and the home rule aspect is there's a misnomer being presented by those that support centralized location or centralized collection of the local taxes is that it would be more efficient. Actually, there is 400 plus cities across the state. They would have to still submit each individual taxing district's form or use one of the common forms. So if we're remitting to the state, it's not just one form and it gets everybody because we have a different rate than our neighbors in the next county over. We have a different rate from across the state. And so they would still have to be remitting based on hours. And so even if it was centralized, it's not more efficient. It actually causes more work on us because we have to certify what our rates are with the state. And then when they send it back to us, then we have to go back and recalculate to make sure that we're getting it what it is. And then so it actually is less efficient in the long run for cities as well.
Hear, hear.
Call for the vote.
Call roll. please.
Commissioner Henderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. So the next item is a municipal order, and I'll ask the city clerk to please read it.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Mayor to Execute a Memorandum of Understanding with Next Stop to allow the City of Paducah to be the subaward recipient of a Workforce Opportunities for Rural Communities grant in the amount of $60,000 to assist military veterans in establishing careers in Paducah."
So moved.
Second.
So while Hope comes up here, I know a little bit about this. For the last year, I've been working very hard on veterans recruitment to our community. There's probably 400 to 500 officers, Army personnel that leave Fort Campbell on a monthly basis. And so we're trying to increase our efforts to recruit those folks to come to our community. And this kind of fits in with that, so I'll turn it over to Hope.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, City Clerk. So as the mayor was saying, this is an opportunity for us to subgrant and partner with an organization called Next Stop. And what they do, they go out and they work with veterans and service members that are getting close to transitioning back into civilian work, helping them find jobs and get relocated. So what this subaward would do, and it is through the Workforce Opportunities for Rural Communities grant, it's issued through the Delta Regional Authority, and it would be $60,000 over 3 years at $20,000 per year. And that funding would go towards holding events where it would be like a intense career fair where local industries and businesses would set up. Those that participated, the service individuals or the veterans, they would go through an application process. And then this funding would pay for them to come in to visit Paducah, to visit with each of these different industries and businesses, allow them time to make appointments to go in and speak further with them if they have an interest. And there would be one probably 2 of these events per year over the 3-year period, with an overall goal to at least recruit 25 individuals and their families to move to Paducah and obtain employment here. And so we would just be a partner in that.
And this money would go
That would go
toward these events?
Yes,
Is that
toward
right?
these events and toward these individuals coming and visiting Paducah. Correct.
And the jobs would be in the city, like local government, or is it just jobs in general?
No, it would be jobs in general. I mean,
Okay.
it could be the city would participate, but then other employers would also have the opportunity to participate.
Yeah, the river
I guess
industries.
When they move here, they could live in the city or the county. Is there any?
Right.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's a good point because, I mean, really, we get into this a lot. I mean, it's really hard to, when you're recruiting or trying to, people come to the community and say, well, you need to buy a home in the city or we want you to take a job in the city, I mean, we just don't have control over that.
Is there any way, like incentivizing military members? Is there something that we could do to, I don't know, give them a break on something if they were to buy a home in the city? I don't know if that's a possibility, it just came to my mind.
But any.
Write something up.
Any of the incentives that we did with the
Remote workers.
the other group, remote workers, some of those, I mean, they were like tickets to things and.
Right.
I know there's a full committee working on it and Mary Ann Medlock with the workforce group is leading, I think, this effort. So this is a great way. I would say yes, this is a great way for us to have funding to do this. And I'm sure we'll have to raise more money as a community from some of the local businesses, but it really gives us some great seed money to start with.
And to Commissioner Thomas's point, I mean, we could explore other opportunities, as we get more and more into this, things that we could take a look at doing that would be, more innovative, creative, try to get people to come here, so.
And I would just say, though, these funds could not be used for that. They're
Right.
They're committed, yes.
And it may not be allowed. I don't know. We
Right.
have to check and see.
Correct.
If it meets all the goals of the grant.
Right.
Okay. Let's go for
Any
it.
other questions? Okay, I'll ask the city clerk to please call roll.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Thank you, Hope.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, please read the next municipal order.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Purchase of Real Property Located at 1801 Guthrie Avenue, 737 Goble Avenue, and 720 Joe Bryan Drive, Paducah, McCracken County, Kentucky."
So moved.
Second.
City manager?
Yeah, Mayor and Commission, thank you for allowing us to put this on the agenda tonight. We have the opportunity to acquire these 3 pieces of property. It would further advance the city's priority towards housing initiatives. It would give us the opportunity to look at these properties for future development, and so it's his staff recommendation to move forward with authorizing the purchase of such.
Does everybody know where these properties are?
Pretty much. I know where
If-
Guthrie is.
Why don't
Yeah.
you describe the,
Well, how to do it without a map? Yeah, so how's the
Close
best?
to Albert Jones.
Yeah, Albert Jones
Yeah.
Park,
Albert
a
Jones
couple
Park in that
blocks
area?
in that area, a
Okay.
couple blocks off of that is the kind of, and without a map up. And so if you think about Goble coming around the corner
yeah,
there,
I know, yeah.
it's right in that area there.
and there's the central part, there's a big church there.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a church that had, the congregation had diminished, and it's a good opportunity. We were able to buy it we were able to buy it at a master commissioner sale. So we need the commission's approval. Okay, call roll.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. All right, we have 4 ordinances to introduce, and I'll ask the city clerk to read the first one.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Providing for the Closing of 15,400 Square Feet of North 3rd Street between Harrison Street and Executive Boulevard, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents relating to same." This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah does hereby authorize the closure of 15,460 square feet of North 3rd Street between Harrison Street and Executive Boulevard, and directs the mayor to execute quitclaim deeds from the City of Paducah to the property owners in or abutting the public way to be closed, and all other necessary documents to effectuate the closure.
So move.
Second.
Greg, tell us about it.
Evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, City Clerk. This right-of-way closure represents the latest step in the ongoing development for the Aloft Hotel. This,
Oh, where'd it go?
There it is.
It's not very big, but.
a portion of
Yeah.
the 3rd Street right-of-way will be closed, and a dedicated public utility easement as part of that, and will remain is a 25-foot right-of-way along the flood wall as part of the development. The hotel proposes to place a parking lot as part of this, so the portion of the 3rd Street right-of-way. Do I have controls up here?
You should be able to.
Yeah, what?
So is it,
Yeah, there you
is
go.
it the
Yeah.
street adjoining the flood wall?
Yeah.
Is the street that runs parallel to the
With
flood wall there?
That's what you're closing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it'll be used for parking and,
We have utilities that underlie that area
Yeah.
heavy, and part of the agreement with the developer was that no permanent structure could be built on top of that area, but they could use it for parking.
great.
Okay, any questions?
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, call roll, please. Oh, I'm sorry, it's introduced, okay. So we've got a second introduction of an ordinance. So I'll ask the city clerk to read that one, please.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, approving a memorandum of understanding by and among the City of Paducah, Kentucky and Trails End Development, LLC, with respect to the residential development of vacant property within the corporate boundaries of the City of Paducah, and authorizing the execution of various documents related to such memorandum of understanding." This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah approves the Trails End subdivision residential infill development agreement with Trails End Development, LLC, for a period of 5 years with a total rebate not to exceed the total amount of ad valorem real property taxes actually received by the city, or 20% of total infrastructure cost, whichever is less, and authorizes the mayor to execute all documents related to same.
So moved.
Second.
Greg?
As the ordinance stated, the infill agreement represents a tool for incentives for development within city limits. It provides the developer with an opportunity for reimbursement on infrastructure that gets constructed as part of the development.
Yeah, so talk a little bit, maybe city manager, infill agreements. This is a tool, as Greg stated, something that we used a lot in the past. We find a developer, who wants to be reimbursed. We would like to control the quality of the streets, that go into a development, and so this is a tool to make sure that that happens.
That is correct. You want to go?
Well, yes, all the infrastructure must be constructed to city standards. That's part of the requirements and expectations with this agreement.
So if we didn't do this, then a developer could build roads any way they want to, and that is sidewalks involved in this?
Well, as far as the development would have to be to city standards either way, if it's going to be publicly dedicated right-of-way or infrastructure. So whether there's the agreement or not.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
that's true. Now, what you see in some instances, or could see in some instances, is that the developer says, okay, I'm not going to dedicate that as a city street. I'm going to build it to a lesser standard, but it's going to be a private drive. That type of thing. And so this is one of the tools that the city has adopted to be able to use to incentivize for development to our standards and for it to be public right of way. Because what happens can happen. 20 years down the road, if it's a private drive and they come in and say, oh, I want the city to take it over, well, it's not up to our standards, and there's a lot of, and so this is one way to incentivize the development on the front end and not to keep us out of those type of situations.
Yeah, you did a nice job of correcting me without really correcting me. But you didn't answer my question about sidewalks. So sidewalks are an issue for people, particularly, down the road when they don't have them.
Yes.
Where do sidewalks fit into this discussion?
If sidewalks were part of the approved plans as part of the development, then they would fall under this agreement
Okay.
as well as part of your roadway, your curb and gutter, storm sewer.
So are sidewalks part of this development?
Yes, there is, I believe, a sidewalk on one side of the road.
One side of the road. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question on this. I know that this infill development was used initially to entice people as part of an annexation tool. This is something different, it sounds like. It's to
This is for
encourage development.
properties that are already within the city limits as opposed to an annexation.
But it encourages development.
It encourages development, and it's not solely just been used as an annexation tool in the past. We do have other instances throughout the history where we've done infill agreements within the city.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, well then, thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I would ask the city clerk to read 4C.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 106, Article 3, Gross Receipts License Tax of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah to address medical cannabis licensing for the City of Paducah. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amendment defines medical cannabis businesses, sets a minimum annual license tax of $500, and creates Schedule F of the general license tax schedule. Schedule F determines the amount of tax payable by multiplying the business entity location's taxable gross receipts up to $3.5 million times .005 and multiplying all gross receipts in excess of $3.5 million times .0005. In order to receive a business license, the medical cannabis business will be required to present a valid license issued by the appropriate cabinet of the Commonwealth pursuant to KRS Chapter 218B as amended, and be in good standing with the City of Paducah, including but not limited to compliant with City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 126 zoning.
Second.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, and City Clerk. Lindsay asked me to stand in for her here, so I'm glad to do that. The state of Kentucky adopted the KRS 218B, which basically provides for the legalization of the use of medical cannabis pursuant to certain terms and conditions. And the state allows local jurisdictions to assess a reasonable fee for those businesses. And we are one of the first cities to assess such a fee, and so we did a little research, and we found there are a couple of other cities that also are doing the exact same thing we're doing. This is a brand new program. City of Lexington, they set a minimum of $500, plus there is a, am I doing that or are you doing that? Not you. Okay.
Claudia's doing it.
It's moving around over here. I thought this was a little strange. Anyway, so Lexington has a minimum of $500 plus their net profits. City of Paris has a minimum of $500 with net profits, and there are other cities we know of that are doing very similar things as that. The Finance Department, City Manager's Office, the City Clerk's Office, and Legal have worked to try to determine a reasonable way to set a fee, and we think we've done that. And we think we've done it the most straightforward and equitable way, and that is to amend the gross receipts license tax ordinance. And I think she listed most of these, but I'll say them real quickly. The ordinance that you have before you basically defines what a medical cannabis business is according to the state's rules. The cultivators, processors, safety compliance facilities, and dispensaries, which is what we're talking about tonight, really. It sets a minimum fee of $500 like the other cities have done. Then we also create a new schedule in our gross receipts. Those are net profit cities, we're a gross profit, so there's no deductions. It's just flat off the top. And the multiplier is 0.05 for the first $3.5 million. Then after that, it's a multiplier of 0.4 zeros and a 5, so it's very minimal. We believe that this is in line with other types of businesses, as close as what you could find. It requires that the medicinal cannabis business has to have a valid license issued by the state in order to have a business license. And then it requires that businesses be in good standing with the city in all areas and compliant with the zoning code in order for us to be able to give them a business license. There's only one dispensary at this time that'll be allowed to locate in McCracken County. And that was, I guess, it was determined by the first lottery pool that the state put on. And we have reached out to that company, proposed company, to see if they had any input related to the fees that we're bringing before you tonight. And to date, we have not received any input at all regarding that from them. But I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you might have about this.
Is the gross receipts tax different for medicinal cannabis than it is for other businesses?
It is not. It just has a different schedule, a different rate. We have 5 different schedules, and we added a schedule for them.
So is it like any other category?
No, that's what we created a whole category just for them because there really aren't any other businesses of like that I could come up with anyway.
Okay.
The closest would be alcohol, but that's completely controlled by the state, and it's different ratings, a different schedule system.
And, the reason the staff is making that recommendation is, as our finance director has mentioned, is that, this is a new business style that's coming in, and we don't have, instead of amending one or the other and adding them in there, we thought because they were so disparate from our other existing categories that they needed to be a standalone.
Well said.
Within that.
Yeah.
So are there other cities that had a schedule like this, kind of like this? And
most cities, the state of Kentucky, are net profits, so
So
that's why we're unique.
Okay.
We're unique. We're uniquely unique.
Most cities would envy our tax structure.
Indeed.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
And I'll ask the city clerk to read the last ordinance introduction.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 4, Police Department of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah to abolish landline fees. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amends Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 4, Police Department of the City of Paducah Code of Ordinances to remove the landline fees and make other necessary edits to align with the interlocal agreement for provision of emergency 911 services between the City of Paducah and the County of McCracken as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
Mayor, Commission, as you may recall from the previous commission action, when we established the parcel fee, part of the establishment was that we would agree also to, at some point in the future, to remove the landline fees that are on our books as collection. As we know, those have diminished, and that's what led us to the joint action with the county to establish a parcel fee. We have begun collecting those parcel fees with the previous tax year. They are tracking our anticipated revenues as we had, and best that we could, laying that out. And so we believe that it is time to begin the process of abolishing the 911 landline fees.
Is the county doing that? Did you say that, or the county?
They will at some point. They have not taken a first action yet.
Okay. All right, any questions about that?
Just a statement that this follows through on the promise that was made to abolish the landline fee once we put in the real estate fees.
That's exactly right.
Following through on that.
So we're saving people some money.
on that.
Anybody who has a landline. And I bet you don't have a landline.
My aunt is probably happy. She's had her landline as long as I've been alive.
So, yeah, this is a first reading. It'll come back at the next, at a future commission meeting to have a second reading and then be published, and we go
Yeah,
into
she
effect
shouldn't
at that
start,
point.
your aunt
Yeah.
shouldn't start counting her money just
Or not remitting it
No,
yet.
yeah, okay.
Not paying it yet.
Okay, very good. We have two discussion items tonight. The first one is a discussion about Oak Grove Cemetery, policies, procedures, and update on, I believe, an upcoming ordinance change. So, hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you all? Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, and City Clerk. So in 2023, we did this. We updated our ordinance, which was pretty old, had very little information, and we updated our schedule of fees. And over the last few months, we've come to be aware of some conflicting language. So that's really the driver for this update, is just to make sure that we have updated language, everything's consistent. We actually have 3 documents related to the cemetery. We have the ordinance, we have the municipal order, which is the schedule of fees, and then we actually have like an administrative policy, which is the public-facing piece. Sorry. And so there's some conflicting language between those 3 documents, so we're just kind of taking an opportunity to update all 3 and make sure it's consistent. So basically the updates are related to these items. We have an update to fees, we have an update for foundation settings for monuments. That's actually the concrete foundation that goes underneath the monument. Some decorations, holidays and operating hours, and then just general maintenance is kind of the focus of the updates. So I broke these down so that we could kind of dive in to see how they are impact or what the impacts are. So currently in the ordinance, we have a late service fee. This is for services in our cemetery that conclude after 2 p.m. Is what is in the ordinance, but actually in the schedule of fees, it says after 3 p.m. So this is one of those items that we need to clean up. The time is based on our operations. Our staff clock out at 3, and so the funeral services that end at 2 allow our staff to get things wrapped up and get out by the end of their shift. It's not that we won't do them, we just have to accommodate overtime, and so that's why we have that fee in place. So we'll be cleaning up language, or the recommendation is to clean up language there to the 2 p.m. instead of the 3 p.m. Another thing that has recently happened is we require 72 hours notice from a funeral home to do a service in the cemetery. That allows us to get everything plotted and ready for the funeral, as well as get staff scheduled. We had one show up on us on a Saturday morning, and we had to get people in really quickly, so we don't have any fees for that. We just went ahead and took the time to add that fee here, at least the recommendation for it. So that's what the impacts will be for the late service fees. And for burial fees, we have a burial fee for every service that we do in the cemetery, with the exception of graveside services. My thinking is, because I wasn't, all the fees have been in place since I started. We didn't used to staff graveside burials. We started doing that late 2023. We kept finding discrepancies in the burials. People weren't buried correctly. They were put in the wrong spot. And so we decided that all burials in the cemetery needed to be staffed so that we can make sure that we're doing it correctly. And so we have added a recommendation for a burial fee related to the graveside. So all of our fees are, all services in the cemetery have burial fees. If you have a burial in the mausoleum, there's a service fee. If there's a cremains burial, there's a service fee. So this would just be adding that additional fee for the graveside. Are there any questions about fees? Yeah.
Do these fees, I know at one time there was a fund,
Yes.
that kind of perpetual care fund. I don't know where that is at this stage. Will these fees flow into that fund?
Yes, everything that we get off the cemetery goes into that, and then it goes back into the maintenance of the cemetery. Yes.
So
and
basically, I guess it's exhausted because the maintenance cemetery costs way more than what we bring in, right?
We use it really more for like projects. We don't use it for our day-to-day operations. And so we do still have a pot of money that all of that fee goes into, and then we just use it as we need to. But we have property plant money. So for like daily operations, tree removals, things like that come up, we have operational funds for that.
Do you know
Be
what that,
nice.
do you know what that approximates on an annual basis?
I know that it's 30%. I don't know what the actual amount is. It changes from year to year just because some years we have a lot of purchases on sale and plot sales, and then some years we don't have as many. So it changes, but I can get that number for you.
It might be just a dream, but it'd be nice if we could fund some sort of a perpetual care. It'd take many years just to keep a separate fund, keep it invested, so at some point there'd be enough money in there to perpetually maintain that cemetery like it is for a lot of other cemeteries.
That is a good dream.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the current ordinance is 30%. So the 30% of all the fees go into that fund.
But we're pulling money out of those fees, so I guess it's not a perpetual care fund, it is a
Project
maintenance
fund.
fund.
It's more similar to a project fund.
How much does it cost to maintain that cemetery? I mean, the mowing, that sort of thing. How much do we spend a year?
I don't know that. I can get that for you, though.
I think that's a good question. I think all of us, should understand that.
Yeah, I can come up with that for you.
How will we make funeral homes aware of the updates?
So what we did with this update is we made sure that our public-facing piece mirrors the ordinance. And then, of course, there's additional information like the decor and all of that. So all of the funeral homes get copies of that. We've asked them to also give it to the families so that the families have copies of it for future reference. And then, of course, we keep it in the cemetery. We have those little flyer boxes all over the place. So we make sure that we try to get that word out.
You might think about, I don't know, this might be a little over the top, but you might ask the funeral homes to sign it. I mean, to have a signed copy.
Sure. That they received it.
They
Yeah.
received
Yeah,
it,
It's a great
we can do
idea.
that.
and they understand it.
Yeah, we can do that. I like it.
Hey, just another question.
Yeah.
How many plots are really sold through, I assume some of them are sold through the funeral homes, right? Because when they
Yeah.
settle up in the bill, and how many or what percentage would be bought by someone going in and saying, I'd like to buy some lots?
Yeah, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's a lot of funeral homes buy the plots. They come to us after the fact, buy the plot for the family. A lot of times we give them a couple of options. The family comes out and looks and then picks which plot they want. So a lot of times it is purchased by the funeral home. This isn't actually in the ordinance. This is related to foundations for monuments. Last spring, we had a monument company come to us requesting that we looked into pier foundations as an option. Prior to that, the requirement was 12 to 18 inches deep of concrete, 3 feet by 2 feet, so it was expensive. Expensive for the monument companies, expensive for the families. So we looked into this and we felt like it was a very good option and it saves money for the families that are putting these in. So we just added language to include pier foundations. It doesn't take away the other. It just gives this as an additional option to the monument companies on how they can set monuments.
So is a pier foundation where you actually dig, I guess,
It's like
down
a
to the
hole,
vault?
yeah. It's a 4-inch diameter. I don't know the exact depth, but I want to say it's like 18 inches, and then depending on the size of the monument will depend on how many piers there are.
But it rests on the vault?
Not necessarily, because those are 6 feet deep.
Okay.
So it's like 18 inches, and then there's, depending on how big the monument is, will depend on how many piers there are.
Yeah, it's a cost savings
Correct.
for doing that, because previously, we had the language in there that it had to be a solid foundation, it had to be below the frost line, and so you had all this extra concrete, and based on the suggestion and the research that staff did, is that those piers allow you to not have to fill that whole gap up with concrete and be able to support it just as well.
Right. The next change is related to our operating hours, and this really is just kind of cleaning up language regarding operations. The cemetery is open from 8 a.m. to dark, and that is publicized, but staffing, so for funerals, we're actually only open 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we just kind of added some of that language to just be more clear on, the cemetery is open, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we do services at 5 p.m. So we wanted to kind of clean up that language. We do offer Saturday services, but we don't offer Sunday services, so we cleaned that up as well. And then the holiday hours, we had every federally recognized holiday listed as we do not do burials, and we've changed that to allow burials on the days that we're working. So now it's only city-recognized holidays that we are closed. Those are the days that we would not do funeral services. So we cleaned that up as well.
Would it be helpful, you say you don't operate, you operate from 8 to dark? Would it be helpful to actually put a time? Of course, that wouldn't, because it's going to change.
Right, and that's
Every
why we
day.
have that. Yeah. Other parks are open till like 9 PM, but with the cemetery, it's not lit, and so we
Yeah.
just put dark on there.
Dark.
So it can change with the season. And then the final one, I think, maybe? Yep. The final one is related to decorations and cleanup. There's language in the ordinance that says that we're going to do seasonal cleanup, where we go through and clean out decorations that aren't permitted. What we've found is that if we leave them out there for any length of time, we end up having more complaints. And so we have started already going through pretty much every 10 days. We go through and we start cleaning things out. This does not touch seasonal decorations. It only touches things that are not permitted and that are dilapidated. So like right now, Christmas decorations shouldn't be out there. It's well past Christmas. They would not look good now if they were still out there. So we go through about every 10 days is how long it takes us to make a round. And so that's why it's about every 10 days that we kind of clean that stuff up.
Let me just go back, if I can, to the updates that we'll put together.
Yes.
Is it possible to put that in a friendly kind of document as
Sure.
opposed to, you know?
The whole thing?
I think that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
That's a
Sure.
good
That's
idea.
something that
A flyer.
people can
Yep,
understand.
I can
Like
definitely
a
do like a
trifle
bullet
flyer or
point.
something.
Yeah,
Yep.
something like, yeah.
Sure. And then the last thing is saddle decorations. Currently, these aren't permitted. These are they're like clips that hang on the top of the headstone. They haven't been permitted because they can cause damage to the headstones. So we didn't want to do that. But we don't technically own the headstones. So we get a lot of complaints about why can't we do this? If I didn't get a vase for my headstone and I have to have a vase, now I can't put anything out there. And a saddle is a really good option. And so this is just one of those kind of discussion items that we're thinking about allowing back in, that they'll have the option of the shepherd's hook, or they'll have the option of the saddle. And then we would just remove them when they become broken, because then they can damage equipment, cause injury. So we would just maintain that like we do the decorations.
And you'll state that.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be stated.
Yes.
In a nice, friendly.
And this would be a provision that we're kind of giving back. So it's not something we're taking away. It's making more allowances.
So the saddles I get because they're nice and tidy, they're on the monument, they don't cause a trimming issue. A shepherd's hook is introducing a trimming issue, isn't it?
It is, and we have them placed right up next to the headstone. We try not to get close to the headstones anyway with mowers, so it's actually not an operational problem because we're trimming next to them anyway. But yes, they can be, depending on where they're placed,
So
so.
if someone sticks a shepherd's hook a foot or 2 feet away from the headstone, what do? You reposition
We would move it, we would reposition that, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And that's all the updates. So other than just general language cleanup.
Yeah, so what's the next steps on this?
So we wanted to bring this before the commission as a discussion item to give you a chance to think about, the presentation, to socialize it a little bit, and then at our next commission meeting, we would bring it forward if there was any changes or whatever that from this discussion, we would bring it forward as a change in a first reading.
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next discussion item, we've invited Bruce Wilcox, our CEO of GPED, Greater Paducah Economic Development Council, to talk about an opportunity for the community to build a spec building.
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
talking.
All right, good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Paducah-McCracken County Industrial Development Authority and Greater Paducah Economic Development, GPED, thank you for the opportunity to present this opportunity before you this evening. This evening, I'd like to briefly discuss some demographics, the type of job mix that we have in our community, some average rates of pay, and then an opportunity that we have before us on how we can help elevate the citizens' lives and attract better paying jobs to our community. When we look at the demographics of our community, we find that we have more citizens in our community but below the poverty average than the national average. The national average nationwide is 12%, and both our city and county rates exceed the national average of 12%. When we take an even deeper dive into the types of mix of jobs that we have in our community, we find that we have 40% more jobs in the arts, retail, restaurant, service type industries than a community normally our size. Now, I believe this is a testament to our community leadership over the last 20 to 30 years because we've invested heavily in assets that create what I call quality of place or being a destination. And many times we talk about Paducah being the regional epicenter of a four-state area, and I think this is a testament to people wanting to come here to shop, dine, eat, be entertained. While this creates a beautiful place and a location where people want to live, shop, dine, be entertained, it leaves a shortfall in the types of jobs that we have. The average rate of pay for these types of jobs is right at about $29,000 a year. Last time I looked, a living wage was right at $32,000 a year. Our unemployment rates are consistently low, 5% or less, usually better than the national average, and our labor participation rates are as good or better than what you see within the state and even nationally. So the question is, why do we have so many residents above the national poverty average? Well, I believe it's because the mix of jobs that we have in our community. So that's where GPED comes in. Our mission is to attract and grow good paying jobs with benefits. Thankfully, over the last 4 to 5 years, the City of Paducah and McCracken County, in partnership with the McCracken County Industrial Development Authority and GPED, has recognized the need to invest in assets that are going to generate better paying jobs. Over the past 5 years at GPED, we've been directly involved with companies announcing 914 direct jobs. Using economic modeling software, we know that those 914 jobs will produce almost another 600 jobs for a total of about 1,500 jobs. The average rate of pay on those jobs is over $49,000 per year. It's been $557 million of capital investment with an estimated recurring economic benefit of $125 million a year. Overall, our job growth over the past 5 years has been right at 5%. That's almost double the national average of about 2.5% or 3%. So I really believe in what we're doing, and we're seeing results in the investments that we've made. But this issue is not unique to Paducah. It's similar in other states and other areas within the state of Kentucky. So to address this issue, the state of Kentucky developed a program called the Kentucky Product Development Initiative, KPDI. It's a statewide effort to support upgrades to industrial sites throughout the Commonwealth and position Kentucky for continued economic growth. KPDI, a collaboration between the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development and the Kentucky Association for Economic Development, includes $35 million per year in state funding towards upgrades and buildings across the state. KPDI applicants, such as local governments, economic development organizations, industrial development authorities, they seek funding assistance for transformational site and development infrastructure projects that will generate increased economic opportunities. Through KPDI, funding is available through a competitive application process, with each Kentucky county eligible for a maximum funding amount based upon the population within the county. There's a maximum award of $2 million per county. Our local community's maximum amount that we can receive is $2 million. 2 years ago, we applied for the Kentucky Product Development Initiative grant to run sewers to the south end of the Triple Rail site. We were successful in being selected for that grant, and thankfully to John Hodges, his board of directors, and the Joint Sewer Agency, they provided the funding match necessary to get that project completed. It ended up being right at a $700,000 project. $350,000 of that came from the state KPDI program and $350,000 from the local community. Last year, we applied for a $2 million KPDI grant to go towards a 100,000 square foot spec building in Industrial Park West. Between the time we applied for the grant and award notification was granted, we secured another significant project in Industrial Park West on the lot or the location where our speculative building was going to be placed. So we had to return our $2 million grant back to the state of Kentucky. We've applied again this year. We've met with the state. We've met with a third-party site selection consultant, site selection group out of Texas, and we're cautiously optimistic that we're going to be selected again to receive the $2 million grant. We've worked with Agricel, which is a national firm specializing in construction and leasing of commercial property, and we have preliminary estimates with costs ranging from $6.2 million to $7.6 million with a median price of $6.9. The $6.2 million is 10% below expected cost. The $7.6 million is 10% above expected cost. The $2 million grant, if awarded, would go to offset the total cost of the speculative building, leaving an amount to be funded by the local community of around $4.2 million or $5.6 million based upon our estimates at this time. The grant would be awarded through the Paducah-McCracken County Industrial Development Authority, who owns Industrial Park West, and it would require the differential funding to be sourced through the city and or McCracken County. So the request this evening is to ask the city to partner with the Paducah-McCracken County Industrial Development Authority and hopefully the McCracken County Fiscal Court. We anticipate receiving approval from the fiscal court as well to cover the cost above the grant application if it's so awarded. We're looking at multiple funding sources to fund the project, one being a Red Leg program. It is a loan program offered by RUS, the Rural Utility Service. They loan money to utility companies such as Big Rivers Electric and Jackson Purchase Energy. The maximum award or loan is $1 million each, so there could be $2 million available there at lower than market interest financing. If agreed and things worked out, Big Rivers and Jackson Purchase would carry the $2 million on their balance sheet, but we'd still have to have a funding mechanism to source the debt service on that. One thing that we've also looked at is we could do conventional financing through a conventional bank, through normal term debt that would be carried on the Industrial Development Authority's balance sheet, but we would need commitments to fund the annual debt service on that obligation. And then, of course, a third issue of consideration might be to fund the project cost via a bond issue. So we thank you for your consideration and all of your investments and what we've been doing to improve or grow our local economy. I do want to thank you. I know since I've been here in the past 5 years, we've made significant investments in buying additional land at the Triple Rail site. We've cleared and grubbed the Triple Rail site. We're elevating the core site to above the 500-year floodplain. We've cleared and grubbed Industrial Park West, and there have been so many good things done that you all have partnered with us, and your leadership has helped us to improve the types of jobs and the culture that we have here. So I thank you for that and hope that we can depend on you again to partner with us on this new project.
Question. So are there any of these, it's probably a dumb question, are any of these spec buildings, do any investors privately fund those, or is it because unknown of when you're going to lease it, that sort of thing? I mean, it seems like there would be, I guess if you had a sure bet someone's going to come in that
Right.
would be
We've actually had a discussion with a private investor who has an interest, but obviously he's going to be looking for a rate of return.
Yeah.
And he would be looking to place it immediately, and immediately might not be the types of jobs that we want there. We want jobs, ideally, we don't want a warehouse there. We want something that's going to provide, yeah. What I shared with you, that's a 100,000 square foot building on about a 14-acre tract next to UACJ Whitehall. We've actually looked at placing a 100,000 square foot building, a second 100,000 square foot building. One thing I think we would do is we would design it and build it such that it could be expanded. I've had discussions with a prospect, if it were to come to fruition, might be interested in a 250,000 square foot building. On the adjacent property that's still available next to where this would be, we have spec'd out a 500,000 square foot building. We had an automotive project there that we made the short list on that ended up going to Mexico a couple of years ago that was going to be 400 jobs.
Wow.
So ideally, I know the mayor, we've talked about this at GPED before. Ideally, the A answer is we would build this and we would have it sold or occupied, before it's completed. And by all means, the intent would be to sell the building to a prospect. And then with the $2 million equity that we would have in it from the KPDI grant, we could take that and bank that roll into additional economic development assets, similar to what we did with the parcel that was sold in Industrial Park West this year. From that transaction, we netted $865,000 that we used towards clearing and grubbing and starting the dirt work at Triple Rail Site, which you all participated in.
So Bruce, 100,000 square feet, how'd you end up, why not 150 or 75?
So that, when you talk to site selectors and you look at other communities, that kind of seems to be the optimal sweet spot. A lot of times we get compared to Hopkinsville or Owensboro. Hopkinsville has done 2 or 3 of these. A few weeks ago, you probably saw the announcement that a food processing company located there with 900 jobs. It was in their 100,000 square foot building. Amanda Davenport, Lake Barkley Partnership, they're in the process of doing a spec building. There are others. So we've missed opportunities here over the past 5 years because we didn't have one. Just last week, we had a request for a 60,000 square foot building. So, there's no guarantee that it'll go immediately.
So how would we handle that if we had a 100,000 square foot building? I mean, we wouldn't, I guess that's a little bit my point, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, how do you have the perfect building for somebody?
Yeah, that's typically the sweet spot.
And then, so if it was to be sold, would the city get its money back in this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. I mean,
Or just
You'd have
use
to.
it for something else for you.
Yeah, if you did a bond issue, I think there's early payment penalties or not, but the monies could be set aside, in a general fund or something for debt service.
I wouldn't vote for it if it weren't a condition, that we get our money back. I mean, I think that, one of the things I've witnessed, that's concerning to me is I've witnessed being on the GPED board, as we get a big project in and, everybody is, panting and, wanting to sell. And these companies don't get big without being good negotiators. And so I think, the city would definitely have to protect ourselves.
And,
on this.
And then I had another question, because I'm not too familiar with how all this operates, but why this location and not like, say, the south side to build new jobs like that or build a building like that?
Well, that's a wide open question.
Yeah.
But
Well, I didn't know if there's like more, because you already own the land there, or, it's simple to do it that way.
4 Rs. Typically, people want to be close to a river. This is not a river site, but it has rail access, it has road, it's close proximity to the airport. The utility infrastructure is in place. Big Rivers recently invested $13 million to upgrade the substation to 100 megawatts right across the street. It's an existing industrial park that's properly zoned. We have all the due diligence on it. It's
And you own the land.
And we own the land.
So that
Yep.
helps.
One other thing, Mayor, to your point about incentives, I firmly agree with you. But I'd also like to add, over the past 5 years, I firmly believe incentives have a place in economic development for the right opportunity. But the over 900 job announcements that I shared with you, there has not been not one dime of local incentives spent on that. So we've been able to accomplish all of that without any local monies being incentivized in these projects. Now, that's not to say that the state of Kentucky has not also gotten involved and offered incentive programs through KEDFA, but from a local perspective, we've been very successful.
But also, yeah, right. But also, we've offered incentives in projects that we didn't get.
Correct.
So, I mean, I've been there in the middle of it,
Yeah.
so.
I would take those projects still every day.
So the other thing, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Mayor, you had asked me to do a little research in relationship to the average payroll that the city receives in that Industrial Park West. And over the last couple of years, we've a high of about 94, the low of about 94 and a high about 105 on an annual basis. So about $100,000 in payroll tax in Industrial Park West on an average over the last several years that we've collected out there.
Of all the companies.
Of all the companies that are out there, that's looking at those companies and what we have from our documentation. So.
Well, we split that for several years with the county.
Yeah, I'm just talking about on average but what we're getting into our side. Yeah.
Annually for the city.
So, the other thing that we need to talk about is, let's say that we had a $7 million building. Let's just, for quick math. And the PDI grant got us $2 million. Then there would be a $5 million delta. On the recent clearing and grubbing, the county, we went in 25-75 with the county on a clearing and grubbing. So I think they would have to vote on it, but I think the county would probably, be 25-75 with us on this project, because this is in the city limits. And
It's 100% in the county. The river, of course, that's an age-old
sorry?
argument.
It's true.
100% in the county, but the river project was 10 miles away from the city. You know what I'm saying? It's all in a discussion and marketing thing. But.
well, I think, Industrial Park West is in the city. All the payroll, but all the payroll tax, county gets no payroll tax.
They did for several years. That expired.
Currently, they do not. And so, there's that to consider.
Yeah.
But they get property tax. If this was built, they would receive property tax.
That's correct. That is correct.
So to your math, and I was just using Bruce's, top end of 5 point, I forgot what you said, but 75% of that would be about $4.2 million.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. I think, from our standpoint, we'll just need to reflect on this. And I know you have some deadlines. You're looking for letters. Bruce is looking for a letter of support. The letter of support needs to go in with the grant application. And so, that's something that, we'll need to take a vote on, right?
Yeah, our next meeting
March 4th.
is March 4th, right?
So,
When's your deadline for the application?
So the application's already been submitted. We, as the IDA, authorized us to submit the application. When Site Selection Group was here with the cabinet a few weeks ago, the gentleman from the site selector asked us to submit proof that the local community would supply funding for the differential.
Okay.
So looking for a letter.
This will work for you.
Yeah.
So you could finance it yourself as long as you had a guarantee from the city and
For the
county.
debt service.
That we would we would fund the debt service.
Yeah, I believe there'd be a number of financial institutions that would be interested in obtaining that. You know, that's how we've done recent land purchase out at the Triple Rail site. And we put it out for bid, and banks competitively compete for the business. You know, I don't know what the debt service would want to be on it. It would depend on the rate and the term. But
we need to have more conversations.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, we were just recently on the 20-year that we were able to do, which a lot larger, bond issuance, but was about 3.8, something around that. So there's kind of hitting in that right now. I don't know what the current market might
I
be.
don't think a local financial institution would give us that kind of rate.
that'd be pretty strong.
Yeah. So,
But, again, if we can do the Red Lake financing through Jackson Purchase and Big Rivers, do a blended deal of some sort, that could help bring it down as well.
why don't you look at some estimates or look at, some possibilities there? I mean, put us something together on paper so we can take a look at it.
Sure.
I mean, what the blended rate would be, what our payments might be, that sort of thing, so we can just get an idea. We'll try to get ready for our March 4th meeting. Now, I will say this, as you all know, I've been on the GPED board ever since I was elected the first time, and I think there's two things that we've identified in the community that's really been a hindrance to our growth in economic development, and one is the fact that we don't have land that's cleared and grubbed, shovel-ready, and the other one, really is a spec building. Now, the opposite is that there's been spec buildings built that sit there for a long time.
There was one built in Industrial Park West 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Probably sat there for 15 years.
I thought it was built out on Commerce Drive.
It
Both.
is.
There's both. Well, one in Industrial Park West and one at the old Information Age Park sat empty too for a while.
Oh, did it? I'm not familiar with that one, so.
But, never up, never in. I mean, we gotta, I think the board identified it as a gap, so that's why we're here.
We again, with the current political environment and the reshoring of things, we think it's prime for stuff to be reshored, especially with the introduction of tariffs and things and people looking to kind of move more production back here to the United States. We saw it last time, and we're hopeful that that's going to continue this time. People will be looking to increase manufacturing here.
Okay, thanks for being here, Bruce.
All right, thank you.
We'll go to work. Comments from commissioners.
Mayor, I just wanted to say how excited I've been, how pleased I've been to see the city's sponsorship and our involvement in the Martin Luther King program, Black History Month, and then to come in today and see all of the beautiful art that's in our hallways. So I just wanted to mention that's a good thing.
It's been a controversial month for Black history, nationwide.
I didn't think about that.
I mean, it's been pretty interesting, with everything going on, but
we've been on the top side of it all.
we have, and the artwork out there is pretty fabulous. So,
And the reception's on the 21st, so anybody watching online, make sure you show up 5 p.m.
Somebody sent us a reminder of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a famous violinist here as well, so that's pretty cool that PHPG was able to acquire him. So.
Friday night, the 21st?
Yep.
That's our
5 p.m.
priority. No, we'll be out
Oh,
of
well, we'll still be here for our priorities.
Well, no, priority, so,
we'll be somewhere else.
yeah, so that was going to be my comment, just a reminder that we
City
do have,
manager, you have any comments?
that we do have our commission setting priorities that'll begin on the 21st. We'll be at the Cherry Civic Center beginning at 11:30 with some luncheon with our leadership team, and we plan to have that wrapped up in time for those that want to come and participate here at City Hall for that. And then the next morning, the commission will reconvene at the respite, and we'll have that morning finalize and formulate your priorities. And then we also will not have our second regularly scheduled meeting for the month of February due to a lack of quorum ability, and so that meeting was canceled, but we will have a special called meeting here in this room on March 4th.
Okay?
Mayor, just one
Sure.
comment. We had a resident in last week from Forest Hills that was complaining about the old school that's there, that is old, dilapidated, that's been there a long time. So I know the city manager and I have talked about it, and not that you'd have any updates on that, but I really want the city to talk to the school board about them removing that building, and because it's a blight in that neighborhood, it would really be good to remove that blight.
Actually, as late as this afternoon, I was texting with superintendent on that matter.
Oh, great, thank you.
And so we'll let you know, and for the public center, we did hear the comment was made that the building had been sold. That is not true. It was marketed. It currently is not listed, but the old school building, the school system had not sold that. And then the reference to the playground equipment, that is two separate parcels. The parcel with the playground equipment that sits on it actually was gifted to the city back in the 30s initially, and then there was some other work, but that was gifted to be a park, plus also the operational needs for Paducah Water. And then in the 70s, there was an agreement with Forest Hills that the city put the playground equipment in, and then Forest Hills is required to maintain that. And so the two separate, so it made it sound like the confusion a little bit that it was all one property, but there's two separate parcels out there.
Okay, anything else? All right, I would ask the city, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Call roll,
I'm
please.
sorry.
Call roll, please.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Yes.
Everybody in Frankfurt.
All right, good.
You should call him. You need to do that. Go to the triple rail.